All right, it's Jeff at StopThePirates.blogspot.com. One of the things I wanted to talk about today, it's been on my mind, is your status here in America. If you consider you have a U.S. citizenship, or you're on the U.S. citizenship, and what that entails, and what it means, and how that kind of segues into a book that was written in 1899 called The Great Wizard of Oz, by this guy L. Frank Baum. I'm sure we've all seen it as kids. The movie came out in, I think, 1929. And we all know that the Federal Reserve Act came into being in around 1913. But they had it always designed before that. So they don't just like, oh my God, there's a problem, we have to act and do something right now. No, 20 years before, they just tell the public that when it actually comes to the point where it rises up into the service and it comes into your lexicon, yeah, you actually have to go, oh wow, we have a problem. But they knew about it 20 years before, just like they knew about Obamacare a long time ago, and it's all been in the making, and the nightmare that's going to be. And your birth certificate, I want to talk about how it really is your death certificate. Because when you're born, if you look at your birth certificate, you're really considered to be a bastard child, because it's really just your mother, and your mother uses her maiden name. And you can get into that whole thing there, but just to kind of give you a quick oversketch of what it is you're basically considered a stillborn bastard child. So what they do is they take your portion of of everything in the world, or in the trust, that you get a part of, and this is how they work it. And you died intestate, basically, is what they're saying, without a will. So they subscribe you a trustee to look over your estate, basically. So you have this estate, and the first thing they do is they put it into what's called a Sustakv trust. So, and that's what every time your representatives in Congress are representing your the person looking over your estate. So if you're a Democrat or Republican, whatever your congressman is, you're representing your or standing in for your dead entity that died intestate without a will and testament, and they're going to look after that for you, and they're going to administrate for the common good what needs to be paid for, roads and whatever they feel that they need to pay for. So that's how that works, basically, and how that segues into the movie The Wizard of Oz. Now, if you've watched it, you'll see prominently when she after the tornado and everything, the guy comes up in the wagon. I haven't seen it in a long time, but with all these kind of Masonic or Egyptian type symbols all over it, and you got to look at all this symbolism. And he holds up a death certificate. I'm going to rewatch it pretty soon, but here's an article that this guy wrote. And the setting of the movie is in Kansas, which is the heartland of America, the geographical center of the U.S. And it's also the first state to have a Federal Reserve Bank in it. There's 12 Federal Reserve districts, and that was the first one that they put up was in Kansas. So anyway, in comes the twister, the tornado, i.e. the whirling confusion of the stock market crash that left everybody economically dizzy. It signified the theft of America's gold, the coming U.S. bankruptcy, the Great Depression, and the tornado whisked Dorothy and Toto up into a new artificial dreamlike dimension somewhere above the solid ground of Kansas. When Dorothy awakes, she finds herself in the land of Oz. Dorothy comments to her little companion Toto, "I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore." Um, and that's right. After the bankruptcy, Kansas was no longer just plain old Kansas. It was now KS, capital K, capital S, which is a corporation. But you know that everybody like Alex Jones keeps talking about the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. If you signed a application to receive any kind of benefits as a U.S. citizen, you waived all those rights. So you don't have them. You have certain benefits and privileges. You don't have any actual rights. Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. They act like you do, and some of them you do, but not all of them. And it's part of their corporate mandate or their mission statement to use that just to kind of say, hey, look, we're still a free country. We still have all these rights. But in reality, you don't. You couldn't go into a courtroom and sue, like, say, the TSA or Homeland Security and say they violated your Fourth Amendment rights, because their courts or corporate courts or privately owned banks administering for the International Monetary Fund, the bankruptcy of the corporation, the Crown Corporation. Anyway, so you and I, if you're a U.S. citizen, are considered the chattel property of them. And the United States is nothing more than a plantation, and they farm us. And that's the cold hard facts. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, and their paradigm or their pre-beliefs won't allow them to believe that. But you'll see it coming into the future if you live long enough. Anyway, so I'll get back into this story. On her journey in the unfamiliar land, Dorothy meets up with three unusual characters, each having certainly a different problem or aspect as portrayed on the silver screen, but their true identity has been decoded as follows. The first person she runs into is a scarecrow, which is a man of straw, which is a front, your straw man, and he identified his straw man persona for Dorothy. Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking. Of course, I'm not bright about doing things, and in his classic song, "If I Only Had a Brain," the scarecrow straw man succinctly argued, "I'd unravel every riddle for every individual," which means an individual, "in trouble or in pain." Today, in light of what we call UCC redemption, we would translate it as, once one discovers that his straw man exists, all political and legal mysteries, complexities, and confusions are resolved or understood, and once one takes legal control of his straw man, he becomes the authorized representative of the straw man to accept and discharge, settle all commercial affairs, as in Oz, the new commercial world, aka the Matrix, because the straw man has no brains, no hands, no fingers to grasp a pen, to write the check, so to speak, to pay the fine, fee, tax, or the debt. Now, there's some out there that'll have different philosophies about the Uniform Commercial Code and this commercial system that our straw man exists in, the Matrix. And they think it's a perfect system. Well, I think it is too. It's a good system. But what I don't like about it is people are deceived into believing or being taught that this isn't how things. They're not being taught how the commercial system works. And and you can get into what we call the government or the corporation. They do everything they can to keep you dumbed down and stupid. And chemtrails, fluoride, vaccines, GMO food, whatever. Anything you would do to make more money off your cattle, basically, is what they're doing on their plantation. So anyway, the second character is a Tin Man, Tin Man, which is identified as a taxpayer identification number. The Tin Man was a hollow man, a metal, a vessel, a vehicle, a newly created commercial code words for the straw man. Just like the scarecrow, the Tin Man had no brain, he had no heart, both were artificial persons. One of the definitions of tin in Webster's is counterfeit. The Tin Man also represented the mechanical and heartless aspect of commerce and commercial law. Just like they say in the mafia, nothing personal, it's just business. And another profession similar to the mafia's, the business of lawyering, they have the attitude that it's nothing personal. Business is business. The heartless Tin Man also carried an axe, the traditional symbol for God, i.e. modern commercial law or fascism. The most earlier dominant civilizations included fascist states. And if you look in the House of Congress, or whatever it is, the Senate, I think it's Congress, there's two Roman fasci on each side, 6 foot high, with a Roman mace. So yeah, it's hidden in plain view. And they keep us in the matrix. But I'm trying to unplug people from the matrix. So anyway, the Tin Man was symbolized, a symbol for your tax identification number, your social security number. In the words of the Tin Man, expressing relief after Dorothy had oiled his rusty parts, said, "I've been holding that axe up for ages." The word ace is etymologically related to the word axe, and in a deck of cards, the only one above the king is the ace, i.e. God. One of the Axis powers of World War II, Italy, was a fascist state. The symbol for fascism is the fasci, a bundle of rods with an axe handle bound up in the middle and the blade projecting. The fascists may be found on the reverse of the American Mercury had dime. The Roman deity Mercury was the god of commerce. It can also be found on the wall behind one of each side of the speaker podium in the U.S. Senate. Each one gilded fasci, approximately 6 feet in height. The base of the seal of the United States Senate are 2 cross fasci. So everything is Roman. If you go back in history, even in the Bible, it tells you in John. I'm not a big Bible scholar, but it says you have to be reborn. You have to become born again, and that's pertaining to this. Is they kill your body, and they reborn you into a fiction, and it's all fiction. And they even tell you in Washington, D.C., with the Washington Monument, and there's a reflecting pool in front of it. And that's where they operate. They operate in the reflecting pool. It's a mirror image upside down. So nothing is real. We don't own anything. There's no. It's all commercial contracts, and it's fascinating once you get into it. Anyway, the third character Dorothy met was a cowardly lion, or king of beasts. As the most feared of all animals in the jungle, was lacking courage. And this is the best part of this, I think, because the lion is symbolic for the once fearless American people who have since lost their courage, which is true. We're all freaking scared out of our minds about anything, especially this stuff here, like this. People are scared to look at it, but there's nothing against the law about knowing about commerce and how it works. There's nothing illegal about it or unlawful. In fact, since you're using this commercial paper, this private script from the International Monetary Fund, these private debt notes, you're actually considered an expert, because why would you be using this private commercial paper if you weren't an expert in it? So the assumption is that you're an expert in commercial law because you're using it. But the fact is, people think these debt notes are actually money, but they're not. They're just commercial debt instruments used to set off and discharge debt. It's an IOU, basically. Promise to pay. Promise to pay what? Promise to pay. Promise to pay. That's all. So your Strawman dreaders strictly under the laws of commerce, and they're just like the Tin Man, heartless. Anyway, after Dorothy and her 3 companions made their way to Oz, they had learned that they had to go see the wizard. To find the wizard, they had to just follow the yellow brick road, which is gold. It is known as yellow bricks, and they are melted into ingots. All one has to do is follow the trail of America's stolen gold. You will find that the thief who stole it in the beginning of the movie, the wizard, was represented by a traveling mystic. His name was Professor Marvel, whom Dorothy encountered when she ran away with Toto. His macabre shingle touted that he was acclaimed by the crowned heads of Europe, past, present, and future. Boy, that Professor Marvel must have been a regular wizard to be acclaimed by the future crowned heads of Europe before they were even crowned. Before the bankers stole America, they had long since disempowered the Christian monarchies of Europe and looted their kingdoms. Maybe this Professor Marvel fellow knew something about the future of other folks that other folks didn't. With a human skull peering down from its painted perch above the door inside his wagon, the good professor lectured Dorothy of the priests of Isis and Osiris and the days of the pharaohs of Egypt. When Dorothy and her her new friends emerged from the forest, they were elated to see the Emerald City before them. One short jaunt away, then came the Wicked Witch of the West, desperate for the ruby slippers that Dorothy was wearing. And as they held special powers, a significant point here is the original book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, published in 1900, 39 years earlier. The slippers were not red, but silver. In the first cut of the movie, the slippers were silver, changed to red to be more colorful. At the time the book was written, America still had all of its gold and silver, and the value, 1 ounce of gold was set at 15 ounces of silver, silver being the most plentiful of the two metals and was known as the poor man's gold. Just as the silver slippers carried Dorothy, America's stockpile of silver and gold backing the currency carried the country to a position of preeminence throughout the world at the time. But as mentioned, when the movie came out in 1939, the slippers were not silver, they were red. So between 1916 and 1933, most of America's gold was rounded up by the privately owned Federal Reserve banks and shipped off to the Fed owners in England and Germany. That has to do with House Joint Resolution 192. You had to turn in your gold and get the Federal Reserve notes. And you can look at pre-dollars before that, and they would say United States note. And then after that, there were Federal Reserve notes. The first I think 20 years, they had to pay all of the interest in gold and silver. So they were just shipping all of our gold over. It's all gone, I'm sure, over to Europe to pay off the interest. And the United States government gave up its sovereignty at that point. Actually, before that, even in 1789. They've been through 70-year international bankruptcy cycles. And what people don't know is after the Civil War, and the Civil War wasn't really the North against the South, it was the Crown Corporation of England taking over the country. That's what it was. But they kind of did a false flag in South Carolina. And without getting into too much of that, and George, anyway, they South Carolina wanted to leave the leave the Union, which they had every right to do, and that's why they were set up and attacked. And then after the Civil War, Congress never reconvened. They ended Congress sine die, so that was it. That was the end of the country. The Crown Corporation took over, and they're operating under the Emergency War Powers Act. We're the enemy still, like we were fighting them in the Civil War. That's the same type of mentality. And you look what they're doing in every other country now. They go and they set up an insurgency, and they attack the government, and the insurgency takes it. Anyway, same thing happened here back in the 1700s. People will tell you no, but I don't give a shit. I see it. Anyway, so when the bankruptcy was declared in 1933, Americans were required or misdirected to turn in all gold coin, gold bullion, gold certificates by May 1st, which is May Day, the birthday of communism in Bavaria in 1776, the birthday of the IRS, and celebrated worldwide as the International Workers' Holiday, a holy day to the wizard and to the tribe. There's four things that all came about in that, around that 1933 area. One was the Federal Reserve Act. The other was the IRS, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now they're there to administer the bankruptcy and collect money from statute and code breakers, and they set up all the false flag attacks here in the United States, and they foment anti-race, race division groups. They run all the Nazi type groups in America, the anti-Semitic groups, and the other thing that was set up too is the Anti-Defamation League. The majority of these bankers are apparently Jewish. I don't know. Who knows? The Rothschilds might be, and the Warburgs, and all. Anyway. So, and then they put their mark on the back of the Federal Reserve Note, which is the pyramid with the all seeing eye, Anno Equiptus, Nova Soda Seclorum. Our New World Order is a success, basically, in Latin. Why is it in Latin? Who speaks Latin? Well, the Pope speaks Latin. And what else can I get into? Your new Social Security card has a red serial number on the reverse side, likely signifying the private side bond account attached to your public side of your Strawman Social Security account. For postal employees, red sticker register mail means personal accountability or private. All other mail carries limited liability, which is public. It is likely that the ruby slippers symbolize the American people with blood in their veins, as opposed to citizens of the state. Strawman with counterfeit corporate blood, blue and black pen on the birth certificate. No matter their color, in the movie The Wicked Witch of the West, wanted those slippers at any cost, and to move fast before Dorothy and her crew to make it to Emerald City. Now here's where they get into how they deal drugs, and they did the 9/11 attack, the false flag attack, and they did Oklahoma City too. The Feds, Mossad, whoever, the CIA, they're all above us, and they look down on us like a herd of cattle. Now, it's interesting to know that people think that when they wave their flag, they're part of that, but they're not. And unfortunately, we actually do have all the power, but they try and flip mode it and take it like they have the power. We have all the money. Okay, we're the beneficiaries of the public trust. Anyways, the witch's tactic was to cover the countryside with poppy flowers or poppies, the source of heroin, opium, morphine, symbolically drugging them. I mean, look at TV today. Look at all the kids on drugs. Everybody's drugged out. I mean, you can't go to CVS. There's like they're pushing vaccines on you. It's time to get your vaccine. They even have it recorded. It's so Orwellian. It just blows my mind. Anyway, so they're drugging the American people into unconsciousness, and then they just waltz in and snatch the slippers. In other words, the best way to subjugate the American people and boost the goods was to dull their senses and get them hooked on drugs. LSD was created the same year in 1939 by Albert Hoffman. The poppies drugs worked on Dorothy. The lion and Toto are flesh and blood friends, but had no effect on the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, the artificial entities. The two of them cried out for help, and Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, answered their prayers with a blanket of snow, aka cocaine. A stimulant nullifying the narcotic effect of the poppies, opium on Dorothy, the lion and Toto. At this writing, aside from marijuana, the two most available drugs on the streets of America are heroin and cocaine in various forms. So, as they all scamper toward Emerald City, the city of green, which is Federal Reserve notes, and the new fiat money, or money by decree, we heard the Munchkins singing on the glory of the wizard's creation. You're out of the woods, you're out of the dark, you're out of the night. Step into the sun, step into the light. Keep straight ahead, for the most glorious place on the face of the earth are the stars. The forgiving jingle abounds with the luminous Luciferian symbols and metaphors referencing darkness and light. The Wicked Witch of the West, in and in her home, in a round medieval watchtower, ancient symbol for the Knights Templar or Freemasonry, who are given to practice witchcraft and also credited as the originators of modern banking circa 1099 AD. The Wicked Witch of the West was also dressed in black, the color symbolizing the planet Saturn, sacred icon of the Knights Templar, and the color of choice of judges and priests for their robes. It's because they keep you in the dark. Someone told me that a Catholic priest was all black except for that, so that little white collar right there, because that's how much truth they're going to give you, that much. And the rest is all bullshit. Who's the Wicked Witch of the West? Remember, in the first part of the film, her counterpart was Elmira Gulch, who, according to Aunt Em, owned half of the country. Miss Gulch alleged that Dorothy's dog, Toto, had bitten her. She came to the farm with an order from the sheriff demanding that they surrender Toto to her custody. Aunt Em was not immediately cooperative and answered Miss Gulch's allegations that Toto had bitten her. He's really gentle, with gentle people, that is. Could gentle really mean Gentile? With Miss Gulch, when Miss Gulch defied them to withhold Toto and go against the law, dear old Aunt Em was relegated to pushing the party line for Big Brother. She dutifully succumbed to the pressure and counseled Dorothy reluctantly. Does this sound like what most American people? We can't go against the law, Dorothy. I'm afraid poor Toto will have to go. When Dorothy refused to surrender Toto, if you don't hand the dog over, I'll bring a damn suit that'll take your whole farm. Anyway, there's a lot more into this. Today, 70% of all attorneys in the world reside in the West, America. To be exact, 95% of all lawsuits in the world are filed under U.S. jurisdiction. The Wicked Witch of the West and Miss Gulch, dear friends, represented the judges and attorneys, the American legal system, including the attorney-run U.S. Congress. They are the executioners and the primary henchmen for transferring all wealth in America from the people over to the banks and the government. The Wicked Witch of the West wanted the silver slippers, the precious metals, and her counterpart, Miss Gulch, wanted to take Toto, which means total. In attorney language, Latin means everything. So here's how they do it. They claim you're dead after you're born. You're born, stillborn. They give you a death certificate, and they open an account for your inheritance, not your inheritance, but your estate, right? And they're going to represent your estate, and they're going to adjudicate your estate. And anybody that comes to them, and when you turn 18, you get control of that. So when a police officer who works for the bankers, which is the court system, the bar, the British accredited registry out of the Temple Bar in the City of London, where the banks are and Freemasonry is. So when they have to come to you and they say, okay, well, here's a bill, and if you sign the bill in commerce, that becomes a negotiable instrument. So, and then they charge you, but you go into court and you say you understand, which means you stand under them, and you say I'm not guilty, which means I'm not going to pay, but they have a 98% success rate in their criminal courts anyway. So I have a lot of information on stopthepirates.blogspot.com on how to conduct yourself in a court situation. But in the Bible it says, agreeing with thine adversary quickly. So that's how they steal stuff, is through statutes and codes and statutes. Anyway, this thing's, let's see, running real long. Almost a half an hour. Maybe I'll do it on the Matrix next. You got to get control of your Strawman out there. It's an absolute must. You have to. Or you're going to get run over out here. And you got to study how commercial law works. Contracts, trusts, deeds of trust, all of it, because it's nothing like they told us. I have a lot of information I've compiled over a lot of years, and I'm practically giving it away. Go to stopthepirates.blogspot.com. I'll get it out to you today. Thanks, and have a great day.